My name is Julian. I'm the marketing manager for Auritas, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on this webinar covering SAP HANA Optimization. This is a hot topic, and we have a large audience today, so I encourage you to ask questions throughout our presentation by using the chat feature, and I'll be sure to review your questions during the Q&A part of our webinar. Now, allow me to briefly introduce today's presenters. Deepak Sood has been in the enterprise content space for more than 2 decades, and he spends a lot of time on the road talking to CIOs and all sorts of companies. He's been a subject matter expert on data archiving for nearly 2 decades, and he regularly presents on numerous topics at SAP events, including HANA, when he's not contributing his expertise to enterprise business leaders. Kairos Gwashani is an SAP Platinum level consultant with 20 years of proven success in platform implementations, upgrades, enhancements, and disaster recovery. He is a veteran of 7 full lifecycle implementations and played a role in more than 20 other implementations. Kairos has experience as a senior technology consultant, basis technical lead, senior basis administrator, and he's currently an SAP HANA and basis architect for Auritas. And our third presenter, David Voss, is a 2015 Business Technology Associate Award winner, SAP Professional, SAP Architect, Business Process Expert, Value Lifecycle Manager, and a Value Mapping and Benchmarking Tool Expert. He has extensive knowledge of SAP, and he has experience implementing SAP S/4HANA and delivering SAP Trade Promotion Management and Marketing to Fortune 500 customers. He's even involved with mentoring other global TPM projects for current and future releases. Now that you know about today's presenters, allow me to briefly review some information about our organization for first-time guests. Auritas has been in the business for nearly 15 years, and we're headquartered in Orlando, Florida. We are the industry leader for delivering complex data management solutions, and we're known for leveraging our SAP and OpenText expertise to integrate the use of native functionality, allowing our customers to do more with less. Now, anyone who's worked with us knows that we stress the phase, process before technology. And this is largely in part due to Auritas's vision, which is to help customers reduce their IT footprints as they digitize. This process before technology approach enables clients to be more flexible, run leaner, and limit wasteful spending. Here you can see that we provide comprehensive solutions at every stage of the enterprise information lifecycle. We do this better by addressing key business drivers, taking into account the customer experience, operational processes, and your business model as we engineer and execute unique action plans in order to align your business with IT strategies. Now, SAP's David Voss is going to give you some business scenarios that he's finding within consumer products, and where SAP HANA fits in that. David?
All right, thank you, Julian. What I want to start off with is that not everybody gets to have their own bottle of water named after them, and unfortunately, it's not my parents who own the Voss Water Company. But when I use this as a reference, as a starting point, is that a trade promotion is something that represents a retailer who sells my overall product. So in this case, my Voss Water being sold at Walmart. And in this case, I've got the item being sold at an $8.36 discount. So when I look at an overall trade promotion, is that I need to be able to track, like really for all consumer products areas, is that we need to track where our products are being sold. And we've got really a lot of information of, we know how much we sold and billed the customer, but how much is the customer actually selling it for? And that's where it really gets us into the ability of needing to have a tool like SAP HANA to be able to store the information and take advantage of all the different data that is out there. So in this scenario, I am using Walmart as my reference point. So again, I've got Voss Water on sale in February at Walmart. When I go to the next slide, what I want to do is using, again, the HANA tool, and we refer to this as demand signal management. We have the ability of storing the data that Walmart provides. Walmart gives their manufacturers access to Retail Link, and it provides the ability of seeing when your product was sold, like how many of my Voss Water still bottles were sold today, how many of them are on hand in each of my store, and the number of stores where this item is at. One of the things that I have done is I went back to 2014 and I saw that Voss Water wasn't selling very good in June of 2014. One of the things I did is I went into my system and looking at the data, I found out that the reason was I didn't have it on sale. And so one of the things that's kind of driving, the selling of my 4 glass bottles is really related to my price point. The other thing that's referenced towards the bottom of this slide is the number of stores where I have this. And so I want you to just kind of think of 3 parts of looking at this screen. By day, I know how much an individual Walmart store has sold. By day, I know how much that Walmart store has on hand. And I know which of the 4,000 plus stores I actually have my product in. And when I start doing the math of by SKU, the 4-pack bottles, by day, by SKU, by, on hand, and the different numbers, this is where suddenly having a way of storing all this information and storing it efficiently creates the need of not only having HANA to do the analytics and to see a great chart like this, but to really allow us to, I'll say, move forward of now that I have all this information by day, what is really important and what is my strategy to optimize the use of the HANA technology. And I want to give you just one more example, is that when we start talking about, on the next page, I've got, a customer P&L. And so on the next slide, I'm not showing my Walmart view, but what I'm showing is a reference point. And again, the numbers aren't the easiest to read, but I want to call out is what I'm showing here is, again, by a product, or in this case, it's a group, is I can see what my, my prior year volume is, what my base volume is, what I expect my sales volume to be, what I expect my sales revenue to be, all of my different discounts, really being able to plan. And I'm going to say is that being able to see these things graphically makes it really easy for my business users to adopt to this type of solution. When I look at it from a technical perspective, is that I need a way of storing all of these values and being able to slice and dice all the way down to that 4-pack of Voss Water to be able to see what is being sold and what is being planned, and really having that ongoing profit and loss statement that will be in place at any slice of time, and not only for this year, but for in future years. And so again, when I just look at my scenario overall, is that when we look at the consumer products industry, we're selling products, and it's one thing to track, being able to plan the values and then expense, like actually bill and ship out the products. But then we've also got the ability of tracking our customer information or those industry benchmarks that are out there, such as Nielsen or IRI, and being able to use that data, pull it into our solutions to be able to do comparisons and align metrics. Because one of the parts that I do is that my Voss Water is being sold by the case, but again, Walmart doesn't care whether they get a case of 6 or a case of 12. They just care about the units. And that's really where this customer P&L view comes in, is that I need to be able to plan my future in the customer's terms and in the customer's level. And this is one of the capabilities that we had in the past with Summon BW, but it just could not handle the numbers and the analytics related to it. And so this, I'll just say, is these are a couple great examples of how HANA really enhances the capability and really what you can offer back to the business organization with the use of these tools. So as I look at having this great power, as I go on to the next slide, what it does is that I look at what is a HANA optimization and really why do I need it. So as I work for SAP, and as I enable these solutions, one of the things that we find is on this roadmap is that we've got 4 core areas. The first one is that as a resource, especially if I was in sales and I want to sell you as much memory as possible, And yet, one of the things that we need to do is really try to figure out how do we optimize that and reduce that HANA memory footprint. Do we need to have everything directly in HANA? The second part would be is that, we have high availability, we've got, the different systems, and how do we distribute the load, how much needs to be, active memory. We've got, I'll say from my side, is I typically am enabling the business process. But what I have learned, especially with working with the Auritas group, is that having somebody help tune and identify these areas really makes a huge difference. Same way with the memory management, is that the times we can potentially go over, where should we put limits, what are those right parameters to be used. This is where I look for that HANA optimization help, and that's where the services that they offered really has made a difference at a specific customer I was at most recently. And the last one is the housekeeping activity. One of the things that I will often do as an enabler of technology is I get it running, and in some ways I get it running and I get out. But part of it is that as you're taking on the HANA application and you're taking on the solution, it's really how do you set up those best practices to make sure that HANA is running as quickly as possible and really giving the users that speed and capability that they were really looking forward to. So what I want to do is turn it over to Koresh, and he can give you an example and give you more of the details of what really goes into an optimization scenario.
Thank you, David. We have sample performance issue that we will be presenting to folks on this call. But let me start by saying that here at Auritas, we follow a specific roadmap to help our clients with their HANA performance issues. We look at the reducing the HANA memory footprint. What does reducing HANA memory footprint really means is we're just moving the cold data to a less expensive storage. We also look at the application server and their load distribution and sizing. We dive in deep into memory management and housekeeping jobs. One thing to remember is that end user perception is the king. You can't achieve performance if you are not considering what is going on in your network layer. You need to know what the load is how the load is being distributed to your application servers. You need to be mastering concepts like sizing. In some cases, you need to resize your network bandwidth, application servers, and redistribute the load. When a user indicates system is slow, there can be many factors that you need to be thinking about. Therefore, you need to develop a holistic view of your SAP ecosystem. Components of the SAP ecosystems are made of network layer, application server layer, and database. You need to know your tools to be able to size your environment correctly. Now, when to optimize? I mean, there's a question, when to optimize. Most of the projects that I have the opportunity to join in the past 20 years, most of them, they are missing a performance optimization phase. So the thing is to remember is it doesn't matter if this is a greenfield implementation, brownfield implementation, or just a simple support pack upgrade. You need to make sure that you optimize your HANA after, especially on projects in UAT testing. You need to make sure that your quality system is referencing your production system. Performance tuning is not a one-day job. It's a combination of skills and processes that needs to be part of DBA's daily process. So it's really important that you start the tuning on early stages and you keep going. Now, this is a sample performance issue. In this sample performance issue, client is already facing performance issues before they decided to add another load to the system. you have a Bob JBW system with 2 terabytes of memory, which is already experiencing performance problem, and you decide to go and add TPM, another load to the existing database. This is going to create extra load, and it's going to bring down the system to its needs. So how do we deal with this? Again, this is just a visualization of what we are talking. On the middle of the screen, you will see that we already have BW and BobJ, and then we decide to go add TPM extra load to this HANA database. So how do we do performance tuning? How do we tune this database? There's no way we can tune this database if we don't understand what is really going on in your BW system, assess BobJ reports, and then do the tuning. In this picture, this picture is presenting 3 transactions that our client was having problem with. The red line represents the performance before the tuning. The green line, it represents the performance of these transactions after the tuning. So red is bad, green is good. Let's just make that point here. So how did we achieve this performance? Well, performance tuning roadmap. First, what we did was we did a general health check of the databases and brought the system to healthy state, because at the time when we started this project, it was one big database and no one knew what the load is on these databases. Although we were sure that database performing well after we brought it up to a healthy stage, we were still seeing complaints from end users where their jobs or transactions were running longer. We looked at the application servers, we looked at the load distribution, and we dig deep into the SAP memory buffers. We checked the network performance, identified which user groups are having issues, and we identified their location as well. We looked at the network devices and their bandwidth. We looked at the application execution behavior and suggested even changes to optimize the code. So how did we achieve all this? Because we have a roadmap, and we are able to follow that roadmap. Now, where should you start HANA performance tuning? Really, I think the first step is you have to distinguish between OLTP and OLAP systems. You need to understand the tools that you are using. HANA has grown really fast, evolved fast in the last few years. You have many tools that you can use to quickly identify the underlying issues. You need to develop a holistic understanding of your system architecture. You need to understand your hardware capacity, network loads, application loads, and database workloads, right? And on top of that, you need to make sure that you do move your warm or cold data to a storage, which is cost effective. You don't want to load everything that you have in this database to the memory. So create a phase plan, isolate your performance issues based on your analysis. Now, with that being said, I'm going to hand over the presentation to Deepak, where he's going to be talking about NLS and dynamic tiering.
Thank you, Kurush. So, as we have seen out here, optimization of a HANA platform can be looked from different dimensions. Kurush has given an example of how HANA optimization has a direct impact in overall productivity and how performance can be optimized using different techniques. And by the way, he has got a lot of other creative solutions up his sleeves where he can deploy those and make the overall system performance optimized for continuous use of the platform. But then we evolve into another dimension out here. We are inputting or adding more and more data into the system on a daily basis. Does it make sense, or do we have any kind of a guarantee that as we are putting more and more data into the system, our performance is going to stay as optimized or stay up to the level of our expectations? You will find, logic says, no, you cannot do that. You have the same static or the same amount of processing power, but as you're getting more and more data, you are challenging the system more to get that information by churning through more data out of the system. So realizing that early on, Dr. Plattner came up with this concept of data aging or data tiering. And the idea behind is that I should keep the data that is the most valuable data that I have in my system in my most expensive hardware. In this case, in my HANA environment. The data that has been historical, that I am accessing less frequently, can be moved to less expensive hardware. In this case, the less expensive hardware has been categorized as warm, and even cheaper storage has been categorized as cold storage. So this is the concept of data or dynamic tiering and doing nearlining out here. So the first piece is hot storage, where you have all your SAP HANA data and all your active transactions, whether it is from from your BW system. Dynamic tiering is where you want to move your data that has passed a certain amount of length of time. The transactions are possibly complete, but the updates might happen to it. And eventually, if the data is a year or older than that, and you are going to be accessing that information only in a read-only basis, that's where you move your data into a nearline-based solution. SAP has their own solution that is using SAP IQ, or it used to be called Sybase IQ. The new name is the SAP IQ database, where you store the data. You might ask me why SAP created this three-tiered approach. Why not just hot and cold? And why do we need the concept of warm in between? This thing came, into realization when SAP built a process whereby you are able to move the data from your SAP HANA database over to Nearline and, a Nearline solution like SAP IQ. But Nearline solution, SAP IQ, or any kind of nearlining concept had one limitation. When you move the data onto that solution, it is only write once, meaning you cannot do any kind of updates. Now, you will realize that in your organization, no matter how you define the whole process for, fiscal year closings, or changes and updates and, closing the quarter and all, you will have occasional issues where you are issuing credit memos, where you are doing restatements, where you are doing basically an update to a record that is a historical record. Well, that cannot be done if the data has been nearline. That's where SAP came up with the concept of dynamic tiering. And that dynamic tiering is the concept that is in the warm storage. You will find dynamic tiering early on could not be installed onto the HANA environment or onto the HANA appliances out there. With the latest version, dynamic tiering is now fully available to be installed onto a HANA database with a single appliance or based on your architecture out there, with one appliance or multiple appliances. And then you can take the data that has been dynamically tiered further into your IQ solution and compress it further. Now, let's see what kind of value you can get out of that. That next slide is going to show you how the compression works. What is the value add that you're getting? So overall combination, overall process that you're looking at in this, in this architecture is you first tier your data, and then you nearline your data. There are some additional concepts that are coming through also, whereby you can say, hey, can I store my data into Hadoop? Separate detail, separate conversation, but you can extend that information also onto the Bora connector. So there are multiple communications coming through, but the example that we are giving you has been tried, has been available for quite some time, and has been implemented by many companies. Now, the thing that you're looking at on the right-hand side is the logs, the info provider, the cube data, the DSO data, and also the PSA data out here. So different approaches, different things to look into. One is that you are looking at your data more from a process control perspective. I have this information stored into these different areas, and I would like to dynamically clear it and then nearline that information. Another thing that you can look more from a business process perspective, not from a technical process perspective, is, do I need to keep these PSs? See, in the BW system early on, we used to either, if the PSs are too old, we used to cleanse those PSs. We used to archive those PSAs, or we could just plain compress those PSAs and then also nearline that information. So some of the things that you need to look into, but what you find is that in this combination, you're looking at your actual reporting data to be only 400 gigs out of the 7 terabyte system that you have. So how do we make sure that what is the actual reporting data, and it is sitting on your actual most active and the most expensive and the most responsive hardware, and you're able to get all your reporting fast? This is what the segregation of information between hot, warm, and cold will bring you in your environment. Next slide gives you further details on how we put these things together and what are the essential components that come along with that. An average compression on a nearline-based nearlining any particular record is about 90%. That's a sizable amount of compression, meaning you have 100 gigs of data and you nearline that information into IQ. Your data storage is going to be only 10% of what you have on your primary platform. But at the same time, is your degradation of performance going to be delayed by 90%? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, IQ solution, and there is a graph, and if you are interested, I can share that with you on a separate conversation or after this webcast also. The IQ performance is slightly lower than the performance of the HANA platform. The only thing is that you cannot alter the data out there. So that's where you build the whole process, the whole strategy around, well, what my data growth is, what is it that I'm going to be nearlining, and what is it that I'm going to dynamically clear this in this whole solution. You can also, as I mentioned, archive the data after the data has been nearlined for a period of time. This is more of a process of retention compliance, where you ultimately dispose this information based on your company's retention policy, which has become quite important with the GDPR and other regulation, data protection, data privacy act coming all through. And you address that not only from your, InfoCube areas, but you address that anywhere, whether it is your cubes, your DSOs, your PSAs, or even your change logs all coming together. So that was one of the things that I have been a big proponent of, and it becomes an integral part of implementing in your HANA environment if you want to optimize it end to end. Rosh, I'll pass the slides or the microphone to you.
Thank you, Deepak. So what happens is when Deepak calls me and he says there's a performance tuning project, what I do is I go into client site, I do assess their environment, their HANA database. When I say I mean Auritas or anyone, any of my colleagues. We go in for 2 or 3 weeks of assessment. We identify areas of improvement. We submit the recommendations to board for review and approval. We look at the archiving data to cold or warm, any opportunity that we get. We automate the housekeeping jobs, and when the system is in a healthy state. We complete our performance tuning and we automate as much as we can. Remember, between the previous 7:20 and 7:30 and 7:40, this housekeeping activities in BW has evolved a lot, and today you can basically automate all your housekeeping jobs, and you don't need to sit there and execute commands one by one. Performance tuning and optimization. So when we go to any client location, some performance tuning tips. HANA has evolved, has many tools that are being introduced with different releases. You need to be mastering the tools that you would be using to tune your system. You need to be, for example, HANA Cockpit 2.0 is a great tool to centrally monitor and administrate your entire HANA landscape. Performance options of HANA Studio EWM and especially HANA Mini Check is very helpful in identifying opportunities that you can optimize your system. One of the things that I always look for, first three things that I always look for in any tuning exercise, I look at identifying my expensive SQL statement, and of course I'm going to be looking at the I/O read-write ratio. These two, I think it's very, very important. I'm not saying not the other steps are important, but me as a consultant, when I walk into a client, by looking at the expensive SQL statements and I/O read and write performance, I have a good understanding of what I'm dealing here with. Again, Deepak, you asked me about housekeeping jobs. Housekeeping jobs evolved from 7:20 to 7:30, now 7:50. It has many more options, but some of the options that you see here, you can basically automate everything that you see in the slide. You can clean up your logs, clean up your bookmarks, statistics, and so on and so forth. So to automate your cleanup activities is a good habit for DBA to have.
Great. And as thank you, Kurush, on that. But as you have seen and implemented at so many clients, where do you find all these jobs have been implemented? Do typically customers have all these jobs all configured and automated in their environment?
No, unfortunately, as I said, because HANA evolved so rapidly, what I'm seeing in client environment is not everybody knows these new add-ons to help you with performance tuning and optimizing your system. So there are new transactions and new tools that you need to be installing to automate this, for example, this housekeeping job. Transaction STC01 is where you're going to be going and uploading your BW housekeeping jobs. There's a specific steps and configuration that you need to complete to make sure that all these tasks are being automated. It's a one-time activity. Once you do it and then everything else is automated, you can basically let it run as per your schedule.
Understood. Okay, great. Thank you, Kurush.
Yeah, this is David. I just wanted to add is that back on that slide is that those items are all so important to make sure that you get the optimal performance. And when you have a user say that it's suddenly slow, then it's like, well, hopefully they're just impatient. But sometimes it's truly slow. Or when you hear that we're out of space or something had to be restarted, This is the part that I'd like to say there's a great user manual on how to handle, the 10 plus bullets on the right side. But this is where what I learned working with the Auritas team is that by them being able to come in and show where these housekeeping items were and the value of doing it, it really allowed us, one area is defer having to buy hardware before it was actually required. And that's one of these areas is that when you can improve the performance, you can improve, the utilization of resources, it really makes a huge difference. And this is where what I found is having those experts come in, that are focused within this optimization area really made a difference with, with the customer I was at.
Thank you, David. Here I have some, I know we said this is going to be a HANA performance tuning webcast, so I had some sample things that I would recommend any DBA to look at it. You need to be checking your production system to make sure that it's on a SAP HANA certified platform. You need to check and plan, please, to update to latest revisions on your HANA. Every new revision that HANA is putting out there, it's getting rid of row tables and introducing the column table. So it's important that you keep up with your upgrade of your HANA database. Many clients that I work with, I do check the HANA OS settings. In many situations, I have seen that those parameters are not been set properly. You need to monitor and forecast your database growth. As Deepak said, you need to make sure that you have a lean system. Having a lean system is good. It's cost effective. It's going to prevent you from spending money on hardware and so on and so forth. You need to make sure that when your HANA database is being used heavily, your read and write ratios are close to 0, or as possible as a 2 to 0. You need to make sure that every single chance you get, you convert all possible rows or tables to column tables. Housekeeping across technical and statistical tables is always recommended. Please make sure that that you don't have really large tables. I mean, SAP says any table over 2 billion records needs to be partitioned. So what you see on this slide is most of the issues that I see when I go to a client site. So the takeaway keys are you need to bring down database size by implementing NLS, dynamic tiering, archiving, or any other solution that you can come up with. You need to make sure that your housekeeping jobs are removing unnecessary loads from SAP HANA. You're proactively monitoring the SAP HANA database to identify issues before they arise. Again, there are many tools that you can, it's at your disposal. HANA MiniCheck is one of those tools. EWM has been around for years. You should be using those tools to identify the performance issues before it even happens. And as I said, update SAP HANA to latest revisions to benefit from new performance with related functionality. At the end, get a professional assessment. And with that being said, I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. Julian.
All right, thanks, guys. It's always helpful to get both the business and technical perspectives, especially when it comes to getting the big picture on something like HANA optimization. So now it's time for questions, and I'll get started with one that popped up early in the webinar. I do want to remind everyone we're still open for questions, so feel free to send that through the chat feature. So, Karosh, I think this one is a good question for you. So we had a attendee. They're asking, how long does it take for you to actually execute SAP HANA optimization?
That all depends on what we find when we go in to do the assessment, right? This optimization can take anywhere from 2 to 3 months, depending on our findings. So we go in for 2 or 3 weeks assessment, we find the issues, we come up with the recommendations, and based on the issues that we are to fix, we plan. So it's really hard to say it's going to take a week, 2 or 3. As I said, performance tuning is a marathon. It's not a one-day job, and no one has a magic wand to make it work faster.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So another question that I received here, it's pretty straightforward. They're asking what's the first step? Where do I start? If this has interested me, where do I start with SAP HANA optimization?
The very first thing that you start, you run your HANA mini check. There is a tool. This is a tool with the that's been out there from the day that HANA has been introduced. That would be the very first thing. After running the HANA mini check, I would recommend that you do check your EWM reports as well. There you have a lot of good, solid historical data with those reports. So by putting these two together, you can start seeing the big picture. From there, you really need to you really need to come up with a plan where the issues are, how you're going to compartmentalize it, and how you want to approach each phase. So again, one thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands, you can have the fastest HANA database, but if you don't look at your SAP ecosystem, if your end user is clicking on that transaction and it says SAP stands for slow and painful, you haven't done your job yet. So your job just started. You finish your HANA, you bring your HANA to a healthy stage, and then you dig into your application server, distribution, and so on and so forth. So you need to have a planned approach.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Feroz. So I have this final question. It's from the same individual who is actually asking about, where do they start? They're mentioning that, in your takeaways, you said get an assessment. And I'm sure this is probably an easy answer for everyone, but they're asking, who does assessments? Are you a company that does the assessment? How does that work?
Right. So yes, it usually takes 2 to 3 weeks to do the assessment. What happens is we will, as part of the assessment, we will put forth the tools and access requirements, so on and so forth. And after 2 weeks, when we finish the assessment, we come up with the proposal. Hopefully that proposal to remediate the performance issues will turn into a full-blown project.
Right. I'll add to what Kurush is mentioning and how do we address that. The first part of this exercise is making you aware of what is it that HANA optimization process covers. So we come on site and we have sample slides and content that these are the different areas we need to look into and search the information from. We will then send you a list of activities and tasks that we have built on our site, where we of course we need system access to your environment, but different areas from where we want to extract certain kind of information. That also includes implementing certain kind of OSS notes that gives us some more feedback about your system health. and we will collect that information. We have some proprietary tools on our side that gives us an idea of what are the different areas that are an area for concern. Our next step after this exercise, we call it more a quantitative analysis, is qualitative analysis. That's where we have a list of questionnaires and we engage with your community, now user community. Now, in this case, we will start with the quantitative analysis where we found out the areas of concern, where we find what are the different opportunities where things can be improved. Well, what are the different folks or the people who might be impacted with that? What kind of reports do we need to look into, or who within the organization, from security, from DBA perspective, or from a functional owner, do we need to talk to? That analysis early on helps us engage or define who should we be talking to. So in the next piece, we will talk to those folks and understand what could be their potential issues. If they have itemized, we will document that. And if they don't have it, that if we have our roadmap for optimizing the performance, what are the different things they should be looking at from their side, or what should they be prepped for? For example, optimization of the performance just optimizes the whole solution. That's fine, but how are they running their reports from a batch process perspective? How exactly are they doing their backups? Those could be something to look into. If you go towards data aging, dynamic tiering, and nearlining, well, then we need to make sure that they are aware of the fact that, okay, we are doing nearlining for data older than 2 years. Guys, do you have any situations where you might be changing that data? Those kind of questions, we will ask them. So that's more of an analysis where we will send the questionnaire to your users, and we will also have one-to-one sessions after that, after they have read through that questionnaire, and we'll collect that information. Now, collecting both the qualitative and the quantitative analysis is what we put as a final document for your recommendations. And this is what we say, you need to implement, and sometimes you want to do it as a big bang, and sometimes you can also do it in a phased approach. This is something we present to you, and you can decide accordingly what are the critical factors that you need to implement right away, and what is it that you can do in a phased approach. So hope that helps.
All right. Thank you, Deepak. So that is the last question that I have here. Thanks again to our presenters, and a big thank you to all of our attendees. This concludes our broadcast. Thanks, everyone.